so busy, middle of summertime, hey?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think quite a lot of people watch the recordings as well. So, oh, and here's the lovely Bobby also joining us from America. So that's great. So, well, welcome, Amanda. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this conversation tonight. Welcome everybody else who's joined us live in the call, and welcome to anybody who happens to stumble across the recording. I think you're in for a treat tonight. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with my good friend Amanda O'Shea, whom I met on Facebook via our shared interest in the three principles. And I'm just really looking forward to hearing about maybe a bit more about your story, Amanda, how you got to where you are today, the kind of work you do, and what's been, what you're seeing at the moment that's really helpful and could be helpful to other people about the principles, or however you want to describe that, because we all have different ways of talking about this shared understanding. So thank you again, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, pleasure. Thank you, Christian. Yeah, well, I've been around this understanding for about 6 years now. I was introduced to it via Jack Pransky came to Spain to do some extended professional trainings organised by Sheila Massand. If any of you, she's been really great, Sheila, at getting the sort of principles into Spain, because that's what she did, was bring in speakers, and she's the lady who set up the Viva event that's happening. So I'm a speaker there this year, actually in November, and that's a wonderful, wonderful event. So that was my introduction, and it came via, I suppose would be what you would have called a searcher and a seeker, and I was sort of always interested in anything to do with people and spirituality and how our thinking worked, and always baffled really by human behavior and things that didn't make sense. So I actually missed it. I actually missed the message that we're sharing when I first was introduced to it. And that was simply because I got a bit caught up in what I thought I knew. So I thought, oh yeah, that sounds really like the Louise Hay stuff I'd done, or The Secret, or all of these other sort of things that I'd been into. And it's funny because that seems so long ago now. It was only 6 years ago, but it seems like it was such a long time ago. And so I sort of missed it. Oh yeah, they're talking about thoughts, and they're talking about, yeah, I know all that stuff. I know all that stuff. And it was really interesting because that year I was a reflexologist and a massage practitioner then, and used to do organize some retreats and things. And it's funny because I found myself keep mentioning this inside out understanding, or these three principles, or this guy Jack Pransky, even though I hadn't really explored too much more myself. But obviously something had resonated with me. So it was, yeah, that was interesting that I found that suddenly I was pointing people in this direction without even knowing too much about it myself. And it wasn't until I went back to go to another talk when Jack Pransky was back in town a year later that I really got impacted, and I really heard something that for me was absolutely life-changing. And I got to see Jack was pointing us back. He was doing some talk and he was pointing us back to our own wisdom. And I think for the first time, I really heard what he was saying. I really, really heard that we had everything we needed inside of us. And yet I've been telling people that for about 25 years. But I don't think I really got the full gist of what was being pointed to until that moment. And so that's how I was sort of introduced, and I was all in. So that's my character. I'm a little bit all or nothing, and I couldn't get enough. I did every course I could. I think I read every book, watched all the videos. That was just how it was. Other people seemed to come slowly. So I had a very sort of slow beginning, but then I was off. It was like I'd taken a bite of the apple, and 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 I've never looked back. You know, I've never looked back. It's interesting because I wasn't. It's not that I would say I had any huge problems, or I meet people who, you know, were in a really bad place, or they were very depressed, or they were caught up in addictions, or suicidal, and I hear these stories where they're coming across the principles, or the understanding of where our human experience comes from, totally changed their world. But that wasn't really my story. You know, I was a pretty happy-go-lucky girl, and I think, you know, most people that knew me back then would have sort of described me as happy, but I was ever so busy-minded, like really, really busy-minded, and I think it's true to say that I don't think that I had ever really experienced peace of mind pre whatever it is 2013. And that for me is the biggest thing. That for me, that clarity, that experience of what we would call clarity of the mind was was the biggest gift for me. So we've named tonight Love and Clarity, Christian, and we'd given it that little title. And that kind of comes from a retreat that I run down in southern Spain. And the lovely Christian McNeill is going to be our honoured guest on our next retreat in 2019. So that's amazing that you're going to be there. But Love and Clarity, that title came from the biggest gifts that the principles gave to me was this feeling and this experience of clarity, but also I was able to express in words something that I'd never been able to do, which I would call that energy of love. So for years and years and years, I saw the energy of love in everything. You know, it's from, I don't know, from a very young age. I think that what we would now call the sort of the oneness of life. You know, I had a sense of that. I had a sense of that from very early on, but I could never describe to people what it was that I was talking about, or I wasn't able to articulate it very well. So I used to come across as very, very intense, and as very, very, and I still am. I've got, you know, Amanda O'Shea as a kind of intense character, but I think that's the sort of the second gift, is that somehow I had a language that I was able to articulate this energy that I call love, or that people call, whatever they call it, God, you know, this universal energy. In the principles, we're talking about mind, the gifts, you know, universal mind. And for me, it's all love. So that's what it is. You know, the gifts of universal mind, thought, and consciousness is love. That's how I see it. I see it that those three things coming together are what give us a chance to see this formless energy of love in form via the human experience. And I see that clearer and clearer and clearer. And so I took a bit of a journey. You know, I was very intrigued myself into doing as much training as I could. I did most of my training with Jack Pransky. I did 3 years of his extended professional training. And I've met some just amazing people, wonderful people. The events and the retreats, and there's just something about the people. These webinars, there's just something about the people within this community, or that come across it, that just, you know, touches my heart. So my heart is touched every day, and I think I'm at my happiest when I'm sharing this. You know, that seems to be what my buzz is these days. That when I'm sharing this, and the people that I have seen whose lives have just taken a turn, you know, and they just didn't realize that they were caught up in their thinking, and they just didn't understand how their thinking worked or works. That I kind of get to see that weekly, daily now, because of the work that I'm doing in the world of recovery. And there's no better job than that, right? For me, there's no better job than seeing somebody come in who's really suffering, who's really, really suffering, and to sort of start to see that suffering sort of dissipate or loosen up, or just not have such a grip, not have such a hold. So that's where the journey has taken me, actually. So I was continued for a couple of years doing my massage practice and my reflexology, organizing these dream weekends and retreats that I used to do. And I think what I really wanted to do was really just coach from this understanding. But it took a little while for me to kind of let the other things go, and as sort of we talk about, life's just happening, and it's happening really beautifully, and it unfolds moment by moment by moment, and seeing that whatever happens out there in what we call, the outside world, whatever apparently happens out there, I'm okay. I'm okay with whatever shows up. I know now that I've got everything I need to deal with it, or to have an experience. And so I think everything's changed for me, not having to try to save people or fix people, not having to try and please people, not having to pretend to be happy when I'm not happy. Not, knowing that when I've, find myself, if I've been working quite, I don't know, working quite hard, or working, I put my all into stuff. So if I'm in a project, I put my all in. The moment that I sense that I'm tired, or the moment that I sense that, that life's nudging me, I'm hungry, or I'm thirsty, or I'm this, or that I can just sort of listen to those nudges, and listen to those sort of little nuggets of wisdom, and not have to prove myself. Yeah.
Well, I loved what you said, Amanda, about coming to really know at a level of certainty that everything you have, and what I heard in that is that everything each of us needs is within. Because I had a similar experience. It was a kind of phrase I heard bandied around, and I may have bandied it around myself without really having a connected sense of that. And then stumbling across the principles, and really getting that there is nothing that can happen in life that can undermine, that can take away that the resources within, that those are at essence, that that we are, that just by virtue of being human, that we have that connection. And I felt that came across really strongly from what you were sharing. It was lovely. And I just love the way your whole story, your whole story has. You talked about life unfolding, and you had your private practice, and how you've kind of just come into this world of recovery, and the great work that you're doing there. I think it's I think it's phenomenal. And I got somebody came to my door for a moment there, so I don't know if you were talking about, but how you are. At least certainly the last time we were talking, you're the only one within the treatment centre where you work who has a kind of grounding in the principles, and has this, I think, radically different and deeper way of looking at addiction and recovery, and the hope of recovery, and the fact that we're not broken, that nobody's broken.
Nothing lacking.
Yeah,
That's true, Chris. I don't know about where you've worked, or anybody else here who's listening who's a facilitator or practitioner, but sometimes it's not the easiest standing alone in an understanding that you know to be true, but standing with other professionals who are kind of pointing in another direction. You know, there are some days where it's just like it would just be much easier if everybody else, you know, if everybody else could kind of could see what I see or the way that I see it. And that's okay. You know, it's a little bit like that, the metaphor that we use about the sort of the caterpillar, the chrysalis, and the butterfly. You know, it's okay that people don't all see it at the same time. There's just a process, and everybody's like, I think that was something before I used to really, I don't know if the word rush is the right word, but I wanted people to see it like today, because because I just knew how much easier that would make their lives. And so, you know, actually having that time, which is what's pretty nice actually about, well, it's what's nice about working with somebody on a long program. Like in my private practice, I work with people maybe 3 months or 9 months. But in the residential recovery care, you know, people are in there normally for whether it's 28 days or longer. So you actually do get to see this sort of unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
You do get to see that, and that's lovely, because we don't have to. There's no rush. There's no rush. So when people suddenly get interested, so I don't know who's listening, whether people on here are listening and might be the first time that they've, you know, come across what we're talking about, this inside out understanding, or there might be people who have been around it for years and years and years, and many more years than I have. But there is something, it's like this little thread, just you know, when something resonates, it tends to bring people back. Like they might go away again, they go back doing something different, and then they come back to it. They get curious, they fade away, they sort of come back. It's something about they come back to it. It's like we just sow seeds. That's what it feels like I do at work. We sow seeds, and that might take a little while to percolate. And because I see what we're pointing to as more of a sort of subtractive psychology, it's not that we have to learn more, it's actually that we need to let go of everything that we sort of thought was true before. Yeah. That because actually what we're pointing to is actually, it's quite simple in a way. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. It's sort of like too simple to be true, or we've overcomplicated everything so much that when we're trying to sort of share something that's simple, that in itself becomes a little bit of to get our head around. Like, really, could it be that simple? Could it be
love
that?
is simple. Love is simple.
Yeah. It is, Stuart.
Yes,
it is.
I think the more we can stay in love and see that the world is a mirror of ourselves. And so if we don't love what we see out here, then we have some work to do internally to be able to love our own world. So we can't just be love unless we love our world. Can't just be our own self. We have to love other people as well. We have to love, right?
There's that saying that you know, I think, is it from the Moulin Rouge or something? The greatest gift that we'll ever receive is to love and be loved in return.
I have a hard time.
And you know, when I also see as well, though, that it all comes under the umbrella of love. Like all the experiences we have actually come under the umbrella of love. So there are some experiences that I think like, oh, I don't really want that one again, you know, but it's happened.
Our inner self, we have everything inside, and that everything inside is love. And we can flop into that non-love, but that we learn to be love. That's for me.
Yeah, and there's something there that when you just said that, it's, you know, when we're just being, like being in a state of love and we're not trying to do love.
Yeah, we had.
There's a huge difference there, right? We're just being. And that word can be like any expression of love. For me, the expressions of love are happiness and peace and joy and serenity and contentment and gratitude. And when we're being those things, it's effortless.
That's right. That's it.
You know, and I think that, you know, I see people trying to do those things. But that when we have the shift, when that shift happens,
Just be it.
Yeah.
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 Like Sid was being love. Sid was love.
Yeah. As we all are. You know.
I had, sorry, I was going to say I had an experience this week where I was listening to something which was nothing to do with the three principles, but it was a conversation, and a psychologist, I think, was saying to a woman that essentially she had not chosen her family and her husband, and what he was saying is, you know, that you're with them, but you're in your mind you have this thing going on that you could do better. You know, it's a shame for you that you got these parents and this husband. And she was inviting her, he was inviting her to you know, to simply choose them. And that's a different approach than the principles. But in that moment, I had an insight. And I saw that any time we're kind of in a situation of not loving who's in our lives or what's in our lives, all of that has been made up within. You know, we have created, I don't mean that we've consciously created the parameters, but it's been created within us. You know, it's my standards that have decided that so and so is not acceptable or not acceptable enough. And somehow, in just listening to this conversation between these two other people who knew nothing about the principles, a lot of that kind of fell away. You know, and I saw the conditionality that I had been holding on to in some areas of my life, which is, say, very different from the more unconditional love I experience for my children. You know, there's nothing I have no sense of them not being up to the mark or anything like that. And not because they're perfect, but just because their love is more unconditional. It's a pure love. And I just saw the potential for that everywhere, you know, yeah, so what you said, it touched me, Stuart. You know, it just reminded me of that experience earlier this week. And I think it's, for me, it's something, you know, something of that the only thing that is going on if I'm not feeling love is that I'm believing my own thinking and judgments and rules, you know, made up rules about stuff. That's it. And but for that, I would be in a state of love and serenity and clarity.
Mm. And how helpful is that, you know, that we, like, when we find ourselves, whatever we call, a little bit off, you know, a lower level of consciousness or a lower mood, or, you know, that if it just kicks in, that we remember we're making it up from our own, you know, sort of thoughts in the moment, how much easier that is for everybody else around us in our lives. There's no blaming, there's no, you know, if we can when we catch it, which I think that's what happened to me anyway. I just started catching it quicker and quicker, because I have my off days and I have my moany days and I have my days but it doesn't really last for days, as I'm saying that. It's not days. It's more like, I don't know. It's more like moments, or whether it's hours, but it's not days. It's just not, is it?
No.
You know, because I think it's like, once the bell's been rung, we can't unring the bell. Once this has been woken up within us, and especially if it takes us, you know, I don't know whether it matters what age you are, but once you sort of start seeing this to be true for yourself, you see it playing out, you see the principles in action everywhere. It just kind of it just, there's something about it kind of saves me. Having the understanding saves me from dropping too low.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not I don't get frustrated or I don't get angry, but it doesn't seem to act out.
Mm.
You know, it might do, but I catch it.
Mm-hmm.
I catch it.
Yeah. I'm just noticing, Amanda, that on this call, and perhaps it's because of your day job, but we do. I'm sorry, I don't know about the guy who's got Leanne as his tag. I'm sorry, I don't know you. But I know that others have got long-term recovery and also long-term exposure to this work. And I wonder if Bobby in particular. I know that you and I have some very similar experiences. I wonder how this is resonating with you, and I'm just very interested on the views that either Amanda or any of you have on how this impacts recovery.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody on the call.
Hi, Bobby. Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too, Christian. I was just sending a quick note because I have to fly, but I love what both of you have just been sharing about when you get in your gut that the only thing that my thoughts, all they do is they create a smokescreen between me and the next moment of peaceful, slightly humorous clarity. And once I realized that these thoughts are not even a barrier. They're less real than smoke.
That's right.
And I don't have to fix them. I don't have to understand them. For me, I can get them to blow away quicker if I'm laughing at them. It just, it just seems to help. Oh my God, look what I just made up. Look what I just made up. And until, like you were saying, Amanda, until you get it, that sounds ridiculous. It sounds techniquey, but laughing at myself once I understand the core nature of these three, the tripod that we stand on our whole lives, right? I have spent a lot of time not only working one-on-one with people in recovery, but visiting a local rehab that uses the three principles. They do complicate it more than Sid did because they have to have stuff to talk about for 28 days. So, I have to shrug and go, oh, well, it's none of my business. I think the three principles are just so simple that the easiest thing we can possibly do is complicate them.
That's right.
Which drives me nuts, but I drive me nuts quicker than anyone else. So, yeah, knowing that I have this default position of clarity and gentle humor that I can play with anytime I want. And if I don't want to, I don't have to. I can be miserable for several moments, and then I can say, not having fun. And I go back to being contented. It really is like you have for the rest of your life, you have a free pass to the audiovisual department of the best soundstage at Disney World.
That's beautiful.
Do whatever you want. And I have an appointment to get to, so I'm going to stay for a little while longer. But, Amanda and Christian, I love your clarity. And I'm sorry, Stuart, I didn't actually catch everything you said. But
that's all right. You can forget it.
The only other thing, Amanda, that I really resonated with is there are times when I wish more of my buddies had been stung by this bee, because when I'm the only one snickering in the corner because I see the made-up nature of reality, it is lonely sometimes. That's why this online community is so precious, because we all know the same punchline, And whew, that's a good thing.
Love your energy, Bobby.
Oh,
Love
thanks.
your energy. And
I'm a little wound up.
isn't it lovely though? We can just be ourselves, right? We can just be ourselves.
Mm.
That's, and working in working in the world of recovery, we get to meet really interesting characters because every person that I'm in there is a character. Hence, ended up in there in the first place, right? So it's the wackiest and the wildest and the rebels and the ones that don't want to play by the rules and and they're amazing. Every single one of them is a gift to me. Every single one. I fall in love with all of our guests, on that unconditional love way, because because they're interesting. They're interesting people, and so it's lucky I fell into that work. I fell into teaching in the world of recovery, but it's a gift.
Yeah. It's so, the thing that I love is that rather than saying, especially in the context of recovery, rather than saying it's your fault because you made bad choices, you're saying you have now all the choices in the world, just like you used to, but you didn't know you did then. So, the same thoughts that can help people to condemn themselves for being addicted to substances, those are the same thoughts that can liberate them and say, well, if I'm making up a story, I have tragedy, I have comedy, I have drama, I can just change the script. I don't have to fix anything.
Yeah.
And letting people realize the power of their thought is not diminished one iota, no matter how long they've been active in their addiction. Their thoughts are as powerful and pure and clean and brilliant as they ever were.
But if we're not careful, we're addicted to our thinking, right?
Well, yeah, I
absolutely are addicted to our negative thinking.
True.
And I think that's part of what we have to. I love your idea about the smoke of thought. It's more simple than that. It's directly, it's like for me, it's SIDS one principle rather than three principles. But that's me.
Right. And I wouldn't even say that I was ever addicted to my thinking. I just believed it.
Well, that's.
Addicted sounds like it's a problem. And belief is more about a choice. Like you can look at.
I got a bumper sticker that says, "Don't believe everything you think."
Absolutely.
I've got to run too, Bobby, but I'm glad to hear you. And thank you, Amanda, for all you had to say. Christian, I love you. I got to take off, but it's been great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for your contribution.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care and see you soon.
Online.
Hi, my friend. I'm so sorry. I don't know your name. With Leanne's.
It's Scott.
Ed, would you like? Everyone else is coming. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, lucky enough, I met Amanda, the place that she works, recovering from addiction, and Amanda totally changed the way, well, everything for me, really. The way she learned me about the three principles and understanding my thoughts, not trying to control them. And she's got a great talent of explaining it, really. And you either get it or you don't, really. And lucky for me, I had enough, the time with her and the colleagues that I did, and it has changed my world, really. And of not letting it control my life, especially trying to control your thoughts because you can't. No, but it's been a new beginning, a new journey for me, really, meeting Amanda.
Oh, that's amazing, Scott. It's so lovely to see you. You look so well.
Oh, thank you.
You look great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like the ripple effect, right? So Scott, you come into treatment, you've had an introduction to it, and you've gone back and you've told your wife about it, And then
Yeah.
your wife got curious with it. And that's how this seems to go. It just seems to go from one person to one person.
Yeah.
One person to one
It
person.
is. It's powerful. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who suffer with similar things, not addiction, just really beating themselves up over their own thoughts. And not that I'm an expert like you, Amanda, but even just knowing a little smidgen about it has sort of, I've passed it on, and it's rewarding trying to help other people, really, of just the tiny bit that I've learned, really.
And that makes you your best expert, you know. There's no experts here. There's just this amazing energy.
Yeah.
Amazing energy that wants to get a message across the world. I think the world's ready for it.
Yeah.
You know, I think the psychology is ready for it. And I think that, you know, the suffering of human beings is ready for it. To really see that we create our own suffering.
Mm.
And that's like, I mean, that's just got to be the hugest gift, hasn't it? To relieve, to be able to relieve suffering on just from one person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's it.
Exciting.
Just it's a bit like that. Pass it on or pay it forward.
Yeah.
But it has such a ripple effect. I mean, that's the thing about recovery. When one person comes into recovery, it's not just their lives that sort of change for the better. I mean, it's the whole families.
Mm.
Isn't it? You know, the whole family, whether that be husband, wife, child, parent. If you are living with anybody or, you know, caring for anybody within your own family or friends who suffer with addiction, then you feel that too.
Yeah.
You know, you really feel that. So when one person gets well, it's like lots of people get well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, and that's to be part of it. Wow, that's an honor, right? To be part of that process. But I want to give all my thanks back to you, Scott, because you're the one who listened.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
So you know, you can speak to hundreds of people, but it's funny, isn't it? You know, you were ready. You were ready to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It has literally changed my life, really. I mean, as you know, I used to suffer from anxiety quite badly, and I've never had it since obviously leaving Step One. I mean, which is good, even though, you know, I've had some off days, but that's just part of life. I know that I'll just bounce back the next day. But the anxiety I've never had, because I've just let them thoughts go, really, which is good.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, and I think, you know, we only just sort of scraped the tip of the iceberg, right? Like what we would have been able to just have shared in that short time. Whatever, 3 weeks were you there, Scott?
8 weeks.
8.
8 weeks, I think. Yeah.
Oh, was it right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's right. So that's why we had sort of a lot more time. But you know, when people come in, by the time, you know, they take time to land. They take time to, you know, by the time they're sort of able to hear it. But people can hear this at any time. People don't have to be you know, at any time. Something just touches. Like there's something about truth. When truth is shared, it just resonates.
Yeah.
Just you know, that spark that's inside every single one of us is never gone out. It might be a bit dampened, but it's never gone out, and it only takes somebody else to sort of like see that light inside of us, for that light to just, you know, open up again. And I think that's why it doesn't really make sense for any of us to take mind-altering substances,
Mm-hmm.
including, you know, drugs, alcohol. Got the phone?
My phone was ringing. Sorry.
And it just doesn't make sense,
No.
especially if we are, you know, especially if we are going through any kind of period of sadness, depression, anxiety, it just infuses it, and it's just not helpful. So I think that, you know, that's what's great about the message being shared when people have sort of, they do come along to a retreat, or they do have come sort of into treatment, because as long as they're there because they want to be there.
Yeah.
If they're there not because their mum wants them to be there, or their, you know, their family, but they're there because they want to be there.
Yeah.
They are open. They're prepared to put everything to one side of how they think life works, and just be prepared. That's all, to hear something new. Then like that, we're only one thought away from everything changing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm delighted for you, Scott.
Yeah,
really.
You've got to want it, and I really did want it, me. And I remember the day it actually did just click in, and that, for what you were saying, and that's a day I'll never forget. Really, it's that easy, really.
Wow, it's funny, isn't it? Like I remember my moment. I remember the moment where it was that kind of click. And actually, what we're having constantly, I see, is we're having teeny little clicks. So I don't think, it's a little bit like when people talk about, you know, if they talk about Sydney Banks and his sort of enlightening experience, or Bill W. and his enlightening experience. We don't have to have this big kind of, you know, skies opening and, you know, lightning coming into the room, or, you know, the light appearing. It can be very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no sort of wrong or right way. But suddenly life just looks different.
Yeah.
We live in the same world we lived in 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing's really changed, yet everything looks different.
Yeah.
And that's for me is clarity. You know, when we start to see the world with clarity, and we have an understanding of where our experience of life comes from, or how it's created, just every day becomes more and more things just sort of open up, or we see things clearer. We feel more connected. We feel the love. I think that's what sort of Stuart earlier was saying. We feel that love, and that's all I think most human beings are looking for. That's what they're looking for, is that feeling of love, being connected, safe, secure, happy. And we've been chasing a feeling for a long time, believing it comes from out there. So we've spent a lot of time chasing out there, with a simple misunderstanding that our feelings are only ever coming from our thought in the moment. It's sort of, that's what's happening.
Oh, you're right.
You know, that thought gets seduced by consciousness, whatever level of consciousness, whatever mood, whatever vibration we happen to be hanging out in at that time, and we create a story, and we feel that. And that's happening every single moment inside every single human being. So every moment there's a, you know, with every new thought that pops in, there's a fresh chance, or a second chance to have a different experience.
Definitely. And I find you have more gratitude for things. Obviously, of the road I've went down, I've got much more gratitude now for stuff I didn't have beforehand.
Wow, great.
But it's just the small things, and no, it's good.
How has it been in your wife and your family, Scott? Are they?
Yeah. I mean, as you said earlier, I mean, addiction affects. It's not just the person addicted; it affects a lot of people. And life has been much better since I've gotten back, and just the environment is better.
Great.
And my wife's much happier now, and just I think through my own journey, as you say, Leanne, she's on that road now of the three principles, and she's really enjoying it.
That's great. And you talked
Yeah.
about her coming to the retreat next year.
Yeah, she's definitely going to come, so she'll obviously see us both there.
Yeah, to meet.
I'll be watching the children. She's really looking forward to going there.
Brilliant. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. We'll get her booked up. So
Yeah.
so it just goes around, doesn't it, Christian, you know?
Yeah, and I just wondered if I could pick up exactly that, because it was interesting earlier on, Amanda, you said that you were at your most happy when you were sharing, and then, sorry, is it Ed or Scott? I think I
Scott.
Scott, I'm so sorry. I thought I misheard you.
Yeah.
No, I don't know how, because they're not at all similar. But Scott,
My accent.
and you said, even I'm not an expert, but the thing is, whatever we've deeply seen that's deeply touched us contains within it the power to touch other people. You know, and there, you know, there aren't actually experts in this field. I mean, there's people who've been around it longer, and I have, you know, total respect for my teachers and so on. But you know, any of us who've been touched in any way has that gift to offer, and I would really encourage you. Just, you know, it's not like sharing more than you know, but sharing what you do know is it's the more we give it away, I think the more it grows, and it does have that power to touch. And you're describing that already, because that's, as we've just been saying, that's, you know, that's what's happening in your home. And are you in the UK, or are you in Europe, or are you in Spain, or?
I'm in the UK.
Oh, cool, good. Well, it's
Yeah.
very nice really nice to meet you. And
Yeah,
the other thing I just wanted to pick up on you, and again, you said I've got much more gratitude, and for me, that is another of the signs of something working deeply. And it's like, gratitude is not a doing, it's not a list. That never worked for me. I mean, I've been sober for decades when I came across this. What it is just that spontaneous, just wow, you know, thinking I really appreciate this, or I love my life. It's just like a sort of thing that kind of comes up from within. And I, you know, it seemed to me that you were describing something similar there, and I thought that was lovely. Yeah.
No, totally.
Yeah.
It was probably the most interesting process I've been on when I was at step one. In just what I learned, in the way they treated it there, to do with the three principles, and the way Amanda puts it over. She is a good teacher of just showing you that it is all about love, and it is. It's. I mean, anyone can sort of pass it on, but I think you have to have that sort of a little bit of skill of explaining it a little bit, and it makes it easier, really. But you've got to obviously you've got to want to change for the position I was in to make the change, really, and the change wasn't serving you well, really.
Yeah.
But no, it's totally changed my life. And as I say, I've got much more gratitude for the things I didn't even realise beforehand, really.
Wow. Isn't that wonderful, Christian? You know,
Yeah.
I know that you hear stories like that, like myself as well, but it just touches my heart. Like, I'm so happy for you, and I'm so happy for Leanne and the children. You know what? They get their dad back at the best they can be, you know, and you get your husband back, and you know, people get their sons back, and it's like, and that's all. We can only be the best that we can be with the understanding that we have of how it works, which is why there's an innocence. You know, there's an innocence to human behavior, because given the understanding that we have, and given the thinking that people are having and believing, their behavior makes perfect sense. You know, and I don't know anybody anybody who's what we would call, you know, acting bad. If we talk about there's no good, there's no bad, but you know, I've got my own list of what's good and bad. That's what I go by, my own morals, you know. When we sort of see that sort of behavior that's not serving people well play out, it doesn't mean we condone bad behavior, but we start to understand how easily that that can happen to or from any of us. You know, anytime I see sort of that, what I would call that sort of behavior acting out, it's like, whoa, I mean, I've got to keep myself safe, and wisdom's got to, you know, I have to listen to wisdom speaking to me, which might just, you know, take me out of certain relationships or certain situations, because if I'm not able to help, then you know, I've got to keep myself safe, or get myself away, or whatever that needs to be. But seeing when we talk about clarity, that wisdom talks through clear mind, you know, that when we just can get a touch of clarity, especially if we're talking about the world of addiction, if we can be in that space of clarity for long enough, it talks to us, it guides us, and it's always been there, just that we weren't listening to it, right? Because we were listening to this. I think what Scott said earlier, like, we're addicted to thinking, you know, and I see that, but I also see that we're addicted to self. Like, one of the biggest addictions that we have is to this this illusion of self, this separateness that you know, that's how we've been brought up. So of course it looks like we're a separate entity, because we've got a separate physical body. And so I think when we're introduced to that, and when we're introduced to this sort of self falling away and feeling the oneness, so although we live our lives in a separate physical body, we start to feel the oneness of what we're pointing to, the energy that's the same underneath all of us. Underneath, we're all exactly the same. We come from the same source. The aliveness in us, you know, that aliveness that allows us to experience life is equal. You know, it's equal, and it's there. If we're alive, if you're listening to this recording right now, or if you're listening, you can hear my voice, you're alive. And that's a gift. It's like, wow, from this place, we can make up all sorts of stuff. It's like, we might as well make up some good stuff.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think that's what people forget. They're looking at all these things around them, and they're making these negative things up, building on thoughts that's not serving them well. And you actually, it's like having blinkers on. You're not really seeing for what's there and what you've actually got. And even just being alive, that's a gift itself.
Yeah. But when we're in it, it's so real.
Yeah.
And that's a gift. So, you know, when I'm in it, if I've fallen into that place, it feels real. And it feels like everybody out there is an idiot, or it feels like nobody cares, or it really feels like that when I'm in it, until I just snap out of it. You know? So there's something about having an understanding. For me, it just helps us snap out of it quicker, because I'm sure, like Christian, you know, we don't live our lives going around where everything is sunny and lovely and fluffy, and it's just not like that, because we're still human beings. Yeah. So we're still having all the experiences of things maybe not going the way that I wanted them to go, or you know, we still keep our characters. Like the character Amanda, she's still, you know, she's still a bit intense. She's still quite bossy. She still can be, you know, all of those things. There's just, the character's still there, but it softens. Yeah. It softens.
And it comes back to what you said early on, Amanda, for me, that one of the aspects of this that I absolutely love is that not only is our authenticity, who I am right now, you know, enough, but it is also the most powerful place to connect from. You know, I don't need to put on a sort of glossy show or anything, you know, that each of us, in just speaking our truth, is most able to connect with others from that place. And it's, you know, it's not something to be learned or a skill to be polished, that we already, that is a way in which we really are exhibiting that what you've got, who you are right now, is enough. You know, and it's the best place to come from.
And that's
warts and all.
That's contagious, and that's infectious. You know, you're around people that that see that to be true and are that and are living it, it's contagious, it's infectious. It just, people like being in that space.
Yeah.
People like hanging around with people who are in a good place because it feels good. And because that's who we are at our true essence, is that good feeling, then we of course that's very attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really attractive. That's why I think I love just even now, I feel it right now. I don't know what you're feeling. I'm listening, but I've got that feeling. It reduces me to tears. It can sometimes. It's so strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there when everything else kind of falls away. It's just there, that perfectness.
Wow.
Yeah. It's strong, huh? It's really strong.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that we're just coming up in time, and I'm thinking that might be a lovely place to leave it, unless there are any last remarks that you're burning to make, Amanda, or you, Scott.
I think that's lovely. I'll wipe my eyes. And
Okay, so that was really touching, Amanda. One last practical thing, people, as well as working in the treatment centre, you work as a private coach, and I'll put your details with the call, and people can contact you if they want to be in touch with you. And
great, yeah, I'd love that. I've just done a new website.
oh, well,
Yeah.
lovely. I'll put and
The
fantastic.
serendipity experience. So I'd love to get some feedback. Actually, if anybody wants to, it's not quite finished. It's almost finished. So it's something in action. But yeah, that'd be great. And I'm always happy to hear from anybody. And if I can, I don't know, if it feels right to just call me or contact me, then do so.
Oh, lovely. And you mentioned the retreat that we're doing in March of next year in Spain, and the details of that I'll put, or the link for that I'll put on
Yeah.
the video as well. So yeah.
Super excited for that. We've got 8 facilitators, 8 international facilitators. It's going to be amazing. 7 nights down in southern Spain, and the most amazing location, and the feeling, like that feeling that we've got a week of that, right? 7 nights, 7 days of hanging around, that kind of feeling, and that's transformational.
Oh. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to do this call today. It's great to see you. Lovely to meet you, Scott.
Yeah, nice to meet you. And I just want to say, Amanda, she is one of a kind, really, and to get her time, you're lucky, really, and she just loves life and loves people, and she's just good at healing people and passing the word on, really. So I'd recommend Amanda's time to anyone, really.
Oh, bless you, Scott. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely to meet the others on the call, and anybody who's listening in, sending you lots of love and wishing you clarity.
Thank you so much, and I'll just say good night there.